The world beyond the wall had learned a new kind of silence. Not the sharp, listening hush that came before an attack. No. This was the silence of a beast that had fed and gone to ground, content for a while. The free folk built their fires without flinching now. They laughed more easily, they fought over lesser things, they planned weddings and hunts and the small wars of living. Even so, Jon Snow still woke some nights with his hand around a sword that wasn't there, his heart hammering against ribs that remembered the cold touch of death. On the ridge above the settlement, the wind came steady and cruel, combing through the snow in long white tongues. Ghost stood with his nose to it, reading the air like a book only he could see. Tormund Giantsbane had taken to the place as if he'd been born from the ice itself. He leaned on his spear and squinted into the brightness. "You look like a man waiting for a crow that won't come," Tormund said. Jon's breath smoked. "Crows don't fly this far. Not in winter. Then stop staring south like it owes you something." Tormund's mouth twisted into a grin. "If you're thinking of kneeling again, I'll hit you." Jon gave a sound that might have been laughter if it hadn't been so thin. He tried to become nobody. Just another man in furs, a sword arm for hire, a name that belonged to a dead boy. The North refused to let him. The world refused, too. It kept reaching for him with rumors, with memories, with ghosts that were not wolves. The runner came up the slope, half-sliding, half-stumbling. He was young, one of the newer ones who'd been a child when the dead marched. His cheeks were cracked raw by cold, his boots crusted with something darker than snow. Tormund straightened. "You look like you've seen a bear wearing your mother's face." The boy swallowed. "I saw a shadow," he said, and his eyes flicked, not to Jon but to the horizon as if it might rise again. Over the sea, south, far south, black as coal, wings like night. Jon felt the ridge tilt beneath him, just for a moment. "A dragon," he said before he could stop himself. The boy nodded hard. The fisherfolk at the shivering shore, one of them swore it, said the water boiled and the birds fell dead, said it circled, then flew east, toward the place the old stories say is cursed. Toward smoke. "Old Valyria," Jon whispered. Tormund spat into the snow as if the word had taste. "I've heard of that. A land that burned itself." He watched Jon closely now, grin gone. "You know it." Jon stared south, and for a heartbeat he saw a different sky. Red with flame, torn by screaming. Saw a black-winged shape carrying a woman into the clouds. He had killed her with his own hands. He had watched her dragon fly away as if grief had made it wild. Drogon was loose in the world. If he lived, and if he lived, so did the danger. Men would chase him. Priests would name him a god. Kings would want him. Jon had seen what power did in human hands. He had seen what it did in his own. Ghost pressed against his leg. The wolf's warmth was real. The rest was rumor, a thread tugging at old wounds. Tormund's voice was softer. "You're going," he said, not asking. Jon swallowed. "If that's him, I can't leave him to whatever they'll do." Tormund's teeth flashed. "Good. I'm going too." Jon looked at him. Tormund lifted his chin. "You don't get to walk into hell alone. Besides," he nodded south, eyes bright with the hunger of a man born for stories. "If there's a dragon, I want to tell it it smells like a goat." The runner shifted, shivering. "There's more," he said. "A red woman came to the shore. The fisherfolk saw her at night. A woman with hair like fire, but her face was ash." Jon's spine went cold in a way that had nothing to do with weather. "The red woman is dead," he said. The boy's mouth worked. "Then tell her that," he whispered, "because she spoke your name into the sea like it could hear." The wind howled between them and Jon Snow, who had died once, who had watched the world nearly end, felt the first true tremor of something waking, far away, under smoke and stone. It took days to reach the sea, and in that time Jon said little. The land here remembered war. Scars cut the hills where the dead had marched, where fire had fallen, where men had dug and burned and prayed. Snow softened the edges but could not hide the bones of what had happened. Eastwatch by the sea was a mouth with its teeth knocked out. The wall itself still stood, but it felt like a relic now, an old god that had lost its worshippers. The Night's Watch was a handful of men scattered thin, keeping vows out of habit more than need. The gate yawned dark, the lift creaked, the sea below slapped at the rocks like a tongue testing a wound. A patched ship waited, small enough to be brave or foolish. Its crew watched Jon and Tormund from the deck with the wary eyes of men who'd learned that legends walked the earth now and that legends brought trouble in their wake. Jon had not asked for a ship. He'd come to think on the edge of the world and decide whether he truly meant to do this. Then he saw the man standing near the gangplank, hands clasped behind his back as if he were waiting for a king. Ser Davos Seaworth's hair had gone more white than gray, his beard trimmed close, his shoulders still broad beneath a heavy cloak. He looked up, and the moment his eyes met Jon's, something like relief flickered across his weathered face, followed by the familiar sternness of a man who loved you enough to scold. "You always did have a talent," Davos said, "for being hard to reach." Jon stopped as if struck. "Davos," Tormund muttered. "Who's the old fish?" Davos gave him a look that could have salted meat. "And you must be the one the Northmen warned children about." Tormund brightened. "They do." Jon came closer, unsure whether to clasp forearms, embrace, or simply stand like a fool. Davos saved him by stepping in and gripping his arm hard. His hand was warm, solid, real. "I heard you were gone," Davos said quietly. "So did I," Jon replied, and felt the old ache behind it. Davos released him and glanced south, as if the horizon hid half the world's problems and all its secrets. "There are whispers in the ports," he said, "of a black dragon, not dead, not chained, seen near the smoking sea." Jon's throat tightened. "It's true then. True enough for men to start sharpening spears they've no business holding." Davos's jaw worked. "And true enough for me to come looking for you before some lordling decides he needs a dragon to prove his manhood." Tormund laughed. "That sounds like every lordling I've ever met." Davos ignored him. "I told myself I was done chasing wars," he said, and his eyes softened for a moment. "But every time I say that, the world proves me a liar." Jon watched the sea. The gray waves had no memory. They would carry you anywhere and swallow you just as easily. "Why would you help me?" he asked. "You owe me nothing." Davos's mouth tightened into something like a smile that hurt. "I owe your father," he said, and then more quietly, "and I owe the girl you loved too. Not because of what she became, because of what she tried to be." Jon flinched as if the name Daenerys might appear in the air between them. Didn't, only wind and salt. Davos nodded toward the ship. "We can take this to White Harbor, resupply, then east. I've a captain who'll sail where coin and conscience point him. And before you ask, no, the king doesn't know I'm here." Jon lifted his eyes. "Bran." Davos's gaze slid away. "The king has his own sight. Let him look where he likes. I'm still a man. I still choose where my feet go." Jon stared at him. He saw the truth written in the lines around Davos's eyes. Weariness, grief, stubborn loyalty. Davos had stood beside too many kings. He had buried too many sons. Still he stood. Tormund stepped closer, looming, grinning. "We're going to the land that burned," he declared, "to find a dragon. Might fight a volcano, might fight ghosts, might fight ourselves. Sounds like a good walk." Davos looked him up and down. "You're coming." Tormund nodded solemnly. "Someone has to keep Jon Snow from doing something stupid." Jon opened his mouth, then shut it. Ghost padded forward and placed his paws on the gangplank, waiting. The sea breathed. The ship creaked. Above them, the wall cast a long shadow that did not reach as far as it once had. Jon stepped onto the wood and felt it shift beneath him, as if the world itself were acknowledging his choice. South had never felt like home. East was a word from old tales. Valyria was a wound in the map. Still, he went. They left at dusk. By the time the ship slid away from Eastwatch's battered stones, The sky had bruised purple and black. The crew moved quietly, as if afraid to wake something in the deep. Davos stood at the rail, hands gripping wood, looking not out at the sea but back toward the shore, toward the dark line of land where Jon had built a life in exile. Tormund drank from a skin and offered it to the captain, who refused with a curse. Ghost lay near Jon's feet, ears flicking to every sound. When the first stars appeared, the wind changed. It came from the south, not warm, not kind, but carrying a smell that did not belong in the north. Old smoke, a tang like burnt metal. Jon turned toward the shore. A figure stood on the ice where the waves kissed it, alone, unmoving, red against the dark. At first he thought it a trick of moonlight. Then she lifted her head. Davos followed Jon's stare and went very still. "No," he whispered, and the word held more than disbelief. It held anger, fear, and something like exhaustion. The ship's lanterns shivered in their glass. "Tormund," Jon said softly. Don't what?" Tormund asked loudly, already squinting. "Is that a—" The figure raised a hand. Flame bloomed in her palm, bright and sudden, and the light fell across her face. Melisandre's cheeks were hollow. Her hair was dark with wet, streaked like old blood. Her eyes burned as if a coal had been placed behind them. She looked neither young nor ancient now, but something between. A woman dragged back from wherever she had gone, worn raw by the journey. Jon's throat tightened. "You died." "I did," she said, and her voice carried across the water as if the sea itself were an eager messenger. "And still I have work." Davos's hand went to the knife at his belt before he seemed to realize what he was doing. "Work," he repeated, bitter. "You had plenty of work when you burned children." Melisandre did not flinch. "I have walked in my sins," she said. "I have worn them like chains. I am not here to ask forgiveness." Tormund leaned on the rail. "If you're a ghost, you look cold," he called. "Come a bordo. We've got drink." Davos shot him a look. "Don't invite." Jon held up a hand, and Davos stopped. Jon's eyes stayed on Melisandre. "Why are you here?" Melisandre's gaze found him, and something softened in it. Not kindness, not warmth, but recognition. "Because you are going where fire was born," she said. "And because the thing you killed was not the end." Jon felt the deck beneath his boots, heard the groan of wood, the slap of waves. "The Night King is dead." Melisandre's smile was a thin cut. "The one you faced," she said. "Yes." Davos's voice went sharp. "What does that mean?" Melisandre lifted her palm again. The flame in it bent strangely, as if pulled by an unseen wind. In the fire, shadows danced. Shapes that were not random but patterned. Crowns, jagged spires, 12 points of ice in a ring. 12, she said. "I saw them in the flames before I ever set foot in Westeros. I thought it a riddle. I thought it a warning of one great darkness. I was wrong." Her eyes flicked toward the south, toward the black horizon. "There are 12 kings of winter bound in the land of smoke. One was loosed, one was sent. One was meant to test your world." Jon's skin prickled. "Sent by whom?" Melisandre's gaze slid away, and for the first time she looked afraid. "By those who believe fire must rule," she said. "And by those who believe ice must answer it. Old powers, older than crowns and thrones, older than Valyria's first dragon." Davos's laugh was harsh. "Older than Valyria," he spat. "You speak as if you've sat at table with gods." "I have knelt in their kitchens," Melisandre said, and the flame in her hand flared. "And I have been burned by their ovens." Jon stared down at the black water. A dragon loose, cursed land, 12 winter kings. It sounded like madness. It sounded like the stories the free folk told around fires to make the darkness feel less empty. And yet Melisandre stood on the shore, alive when she should be dust. "Come," she said, and lifted her chin. "If you seek the black dragon, you will find him only if you understand what hunts him, what waits beneath him." Davos's voice shook. "Why should we trust you?" Melisandre's eyes found Davos, and for a moment the woman who had once commanded kings through prophecy seemed stripped bare. "You should not," she said, "but you should listen, because I have seen what comes if you do not." The captain muttered a curse and began lowering a small boat. Davos opened his mouth to protest, then shut it. His shoulders sagged as if he were carrying the weight of 100 old arguments that no longer mattered. Tormund grinned. "Well," he said, "this is already better than fishing." Melisandre stepped into the boat when it reached her, without looking down. The oars creaked, the sea hissed against ice. When she climbed onto the deck, she smelled of smoke and cold iron. Ghost rose, hackles lifted, but did not growl. He simply watched her with the wary stare of an animal that had seen too many dead things pretend to breathe. Melisandre met Jon's eyes. "You carry grief like a blade," she said softly. "Be careful where you point it." Jon swallowed. "Why Valyria?" he asked. "Why there?" Melisandre's gaze turned inward, as if she were reading something written on the inside of her skull. "Because the world thinks Valyria died," she said. "And because the world is wrong." The ship turned its prow into the dark, and the shore fell away behind them. Eastwatch's ruins shrinking until they became only a memory, then nothing at all. White Harbor smelled of fish and old wood and the sweet rot of seaweed. It smelled of life continuing, stubborn and ordinary, as if the world had never been haunted by dead men with blue eyes. That almost hurt more than any ruin. Davos moved through the docks like he'd never left them. He barked orders, counted barrels, checked knots, argued over coin. Men nodded to him with respect that was not bought by titles, but by the simple knowledge that Ser Davos Seaworth had survived where others drowned. Jon stayed back. He watched families on the quay, women haggling over eels, children chasing each other between crates. The sight tugged at him with a strange ache. He had once believed he might have a life like this. A wife, a child, a hearth. The gods had laughed and handed him a crown of thorns instead. Tormund stared openly. "So many people," he muttered, as if half in awe and half in disgust. "How do they breathe?" "They're used to it," Jon said. "Used to smelling each other," Tormund corrected. He sniffed and grimaced. "And they all wear cloth like they're afraid of their own skin." Ghost prowled at Jon's heel, drawing wary glances. A few men made signs against evil. Others simply stepped aside. Wolves were legends now too. Melisandre remained near the shadows of a warehouse, watching the harbor with eyes that never seemed to blink. The lantern light caught the edges of her face and made her look carved, like a statue that had decided to walk. A sailor passed and spat near her feet. "Witch," he muttered under his breath. Melisandre did not react. Only her fingers flexed once, as if resisting the urge to do something terrible. Jon approached her. "They fear you," he said. "They should," Melisandre replied. "Fear is honest. Respect is often a lie." Jon hesitated. He had never known what to do with Melisandre. She had been a weapon, a counselor, a monster, a savior. She had been all and none. "Why come with us?" he asked again. "If you've done your work." Melisandre's gaze drifted to the water. "I have been wrong," she said. "So many times. Wrong in ways that killed." She swallowed, and for a heartbeat the old woman beneath the glamour that had once been stripped away at Winterfell seemed to surface. Bones, weariness, regret. "When I walked into the snow that night, I thought I was finally free, that I had paid. But the fire did not let me go." "The Lord of Light," Jon said, and tasted bitterness. Melisandre's eyes sharpened. "Call it what you will," she said. "Light, fire, hunger. It showed me the same thing it has always shown me. The world is a board, and pieces move whether they wish to or not." Her voice lowered. "In Westeros you were a piece. So was Daenerys Stormborn. So was the Night King. None of you were the hand." Jon's stomach tightened. "Who is?" Melisandre's mouth turned. "In Valyria," she said simply. Davos returned, wiping his hands on his cloak. "We sail at dawn," he announced. Then, eyeing Melisandre, he added, And if you so much as light a candle without telling me, I'll throw you back in the sea." Melisandre met his glare. "You will try," she said calmly. Davos swore under his breath and turned away. Tormund chuckled. "I like her," he whispered to Jon. "She scares the fish." That night they slept on the ship. Jon lay awake, listening to the harbor noises. Creaking ropes, distant laughter, the slap of water. He dreamed of dragons, not of fire but of shadow. In the dream, Drogon flew over a city made of black glass and gold, over towers that smoked like chimneys. Below, men in pale armor looked up and raised their hands not in fear but in greeting. He woke with his hand on Longclaw, heart pounding, and the taste of ash in his mouth. On deck, Melisandre stood alone, facing east. The wind teased her hair. Her lips moved soundlessly, as if she were praying to something that had never learned to listen. Jon stepped beside her. "What are you asking for?" he murmured. Melisandre's eyes glinted. "Not mercy," she said, "only sight." She lifted her palm to the horizon, as if feeling heat from an unseen fire. "Valyria," she whispered, and there was longing in the word, like the name of a home she had never been allowed to enter. They sailed at dawn. The harbor vanished behind them in a smear of gray, and the land became a line, then nothing. The sea took over, endless, shifting, indifferent. If the world had a face, Jon thought it was the sea's, beautiful and cruel in the same breath. The storm found them on the second day. It rolled in from the east like a dark army, low and heavy, swallowing the sky. Wind slammed into the sails. Rain came sideways, needling skin. The ship pitched and groaned. Men cursed and hauled rope until their hands bled. Davos moved among them with the steadiness of a man who'd been born on water. He shouted orders that cut through thunder. He grabbed a line with his maimed fingers and hauled anyway, teeth clenched. No lord's title sat on him, only salt. Tormund, soaked, laughed like a madman. "This is a good sea," he yelled into the wind. "It tries to kill you like a proper enemy." Jon braced himself at the rail, rain stinging his eyes. He could taste the sea bitter, metallic, alive. He had been on ships before. He had never loved it. Too much surrender in water, too little ground underfoot. Yet here, with the storm trying to throw them into the deep, Jon felt something he hadn't in years. Focus. The world narrowed to rope and wood, to breath and balance. Ghost stayed close, claws scraping, golden eyes narrowed against spray. He looked like a white shadow against the dark, and Omen the sailors pretended not to see. Melisandre stood at the fore, unmoving, her red cloak snapping like a banner. In her hands she held a small flame, sheltered between her palms. It should have died in this storm. It did not. It burned stubbornly, bright as a wound. Davos caught sight of it and swore. "Put that out," he bellowed. Melisandre's voice carried back, calm as prayer. "The wind cannot take it," she called, "because it is not mine." Jon forced his way toward her, boots slipping. "Why keep it?" he demanded over the roar. Melisandre's eyes were fixed on the storm. "Because the sea listens," she said, "and the things beneath it listen too. Fire tells them we are not prey." Jon stared at her, then at the black water bucking around them. For a moment, between waves, he thought he saw something. An outline, huge and slow, passing beneath the surface. His stomach lurched. He blinked and it was gone. Only water. The storm lasted through the night. Men took turns at the pumps, at the ropes, at prayer. Someone sang a cracked hymn to the seven. Another man muttered the names of drowned kin. Tormund told a story about a bear that married a woman and ate her father. No one laughed, but it kept them awake. Jon's hands were raw. His shoulders ached, yet he could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw a black wing cutting through red sky. At the storm's height, when the ship lurched so hard it seemed it must snap, Melisandre's flame flared. For a heartbeat, the light threw shadows across the deck in strange shapes. crowned silhouettes, jagged and tall, standing in a circle. Jon's breath caught. Melisandre turned her head slightly, as if she felt his stare. "You see," she said almost gently, "even here, what are they?" Jon whispered. "Kings," Melisandre said. "Not of men, not of lands." Her eyes returned to the storm. Of endings. The wind howled. The ship groaned and held. When dawn finally bled into the sky, the storm limped away, leaving behind a sea strewn with foam like torn cloth. Men collapsed where they stood, too tired to speak. Davos leaned on the rail, breathing hard, eyes fixed on the horizon as if daring the world to try again. Tormund clapped Jon on the shoulder. "If Valyria's worse than that," he grinned, "I'll marry it." Jon watched the eastern line where sky met water. It looked calm now, deceptively. He had learned long ago that calm meant nothing. Calm was just the world drawing breath before the next blow. They made Volantis under a sky the color of bruised wine. The city rose from the water like a beast crouched, its walls high, its towers capped with firelight. The air smelled of spice and sweat and smoke, thick as a blanket after the clean sharpness of the north. Jon hated it at once. Too many eyes, too many hands, too much hunger pressed into narrow streets. Slaves moved under chains, heads down, backs bent. Masters watched from balconies, fat with comfort. Jon felt anger tighten like a rope inside him. He had seen slavery in Meereen. He had watched Daenerys break chains and burn men who thought themselves gods. He had loved her for that once. He wondered what she would have done here if she had not been swallowed by the madness of her own fire. Tormund stared openly at everything, at the elephants hauling loads, at the painted courtesans laughing in doorways, at the red priests chanting with torches that painted their faces in moving shadow. "This place is wrong," Tormund declared loudly. Davos hissed, "Try not to start a war before we've bought supplies." Tormund lowered his voice only slightly. "How do you buy supplies without starting a war?" Davos pinched the bridge of his nose as if warding off a headache. "With coin," he said, "and manners." "Coin is just shiny war," Tormund muttered. Melisandre was drawn through the crowds as if by an invisible thread. The red priests did not block her path. Some bowed. Some stared with wide eyes. One old priest reached out as if to touch her sleeve, then recoiled when his fingers came away dusted with ash. She climbed the steps of the temple without looking back. Jon followed at a distance. He did not trust temples. He had knelt in too many. He had watched too many men die believing they were loved by gods who never answered. Inside, heat hit him like a hand. The temple's heart was a brazier so large it might have been a forge. Flames leaped high, bright and hungry. The air shimmered. Melisandre stepped close and held her hands out to the fire, palms up. Her lips moved. Words in a language Jon did not know, sharp as broken glass. The flames bent toward her as if listening. A young priest approached, eyes shining with devotion. "You are returned," he breathed, and his voice trembled. "We felt it. The light dimmed when you went. It burns stronger now." Melisandre's gaze flicked to him. "It burns stronger because it is threatened," she said. The priest frowned, confused. Melisandre turned her eyes to the flame again. "Tell me," she murmured, "what do your fires show of Valyria?" The priest's expression shifted into reverent fear. "The doom," he whispered. "Smoke that eats men, stone that weeps blood, dragons screaming. Nothing lives there." Melisandre's mouth tightened. "Your fires lie," she said softly. "Or rather, they tell only what they wish you to see." Jon stepped forward. The priest noticed him then and stiffened. "You," he whispered. His eyes widened. "The one who was dead." Jon's jaw clenched. "I'm alive." The priest swallowed. "The flames spoke of you," he said. "They called you the one between fire and ice." Jon glanced at Melisandre. Her eyes had gone distant again, fixed on something beyond the flame. "Valyria is not dead," she said, voice low. "It is hidden behind belief, behind fear." Behind the story, the world tells itself so it can sleep. The priest shook his head.
Impossible.
Melisandre lifted her hand. In her palm, a tiny flame danced, but it was not red now. It was pale, almost blue-white, like fire seen through ice. The priest recoiled. That is not. It is, Melisandre said. It is all of it. Fire and cold. Light and hunger. She closed her fist, snuffing the flame. And it is waking. Jon watched her, unease crawling under his skin. What are we walking into? He asked quietly. Melisandre turned, and in the temple's heat her face looked cracked, like stone that had been in a fire too long. A lie that has lasted centuries, she said, and the truth that kept it alive. Outside, Davos was negotiating with a harbor official, face tight, fingers tapping impatiently. He looked up as Jon approached. "We leave at first light," Davos said. "Volantis is a snake pit, and I'd rather not wait for it to bite." Tormund came behind Jon, eyes narrowed at a line of slaves being marched past. His fists clenched. "If I had a dragon," he muttered, "I'd burn every chain." Jon's throat tightened. He looked east, where the sky darkened toward the smoking sea. Somewhere beyond that horizon, Drogon might be flying, free and alone. Somewhere beyond that, Melisandre claimed, kings of winter waited under smoke. Jon wondered if the world would ever stop asking for blood. The closer they sailed to Valyria, the stranger the sea became. At first it was only warmth, as if they'd drifted into a current that remembered summer. Then the air thickened, the horizon blurred. A haze lay low over the water, gray at the edges, darker at its heart. Birds vanished. The sky went empty. On the third day east of Volantis, ash began to fall. Not in a storm, not in sheets, just a constant soft drifting, like black snow. It clung to hair and cloth, dusted the deck, gathered in corners. When Jon tasted it on his lips, it was bitter and metallic. The crew grew quiet. Men who had laughed in the storm now made signs and muttered prayers. One sailor refused to look east at all. Another begged Davos to turn back, voice cracking like a child's. Davos's temper flared. "Turn back to what?" he snapped. "To Volantis and its chains? To Westeros and its ghosts? We sail. That's what ships do." "We sail into the doom," the man whispered. "The doom is a story," Davos said harshly, then paused. His gaze slid toward Melisandre. Or it was. Melisandre stood near the prow, ash settling on her shoulders like a shroud. Her lips curved, almost fond. "Valyria still breathes," she murmured. "I can feel its heat." Jon leaned close enough to be heard over wind. "And the kings?" he asked. Melisandre's eyes flicked to him. "One of them tasted your world," she said. "It did not die easily. It will not be forgotten." Tormund sniffed the air and grimaced. "Smells like a giant's arse after stew," he declared. "If this is doom, it needs better seasoning." No one laughed. Ghost growled low, a sound that vibrated through his chest. Jon followed the wolf stare to the water. For a moment, the sea looked wrong. Not just dark, but thick like oil. A ripple passed beneath the surface. Too slow for a fish, too large for a wave. The ship rocked gently, as if something had brushed against it. Jon's fingers tightened on the rail. "What was that?" Davos barked. "Keep your eyes on your footing." But his own gaze flicked down. Melisandre's voice came soft, almost tender. "Old things," she said. "Old and hungry. They have eaten ash for centuries. Now they smell flesh." The fog thickened as they sailed. It rolled in, swallowing the world in damp gray. The ship became an island of wood and lantern light in a sea of nothing. Then the heat came. It rose from beneath as if the water were boiling, but it did not steam. Instead, it made the air shimmer. Sweat broke on Jon's skin beneath furs. Men tore off gloves, gasping, confused. The contrast was wrong. Ash falling, air hot, fog cold on the face. Davos wrapped cloth over his mouth and nose. "Breathe through this," he ordered. "Whatever's in that mist will kill you." Jon did the same. The cloth tasted of salt and old rope. Through the gray, faint shapes began to appear. At first Jon thought they were rocks. Then he realized they were towers, black, jagged, half-melted, rising from the sea like teeth. Ruins of Valyria's outskirts, swallowed by water and time. The sight made his stomach lurch. Even shattered, the stone looked wrong. Too smooth, too dark, as if it had been poured. "Black glass," Davos muttered. "Dragonstone," Jon whispered, remembering the castle's dark walls. This was like that, but older, deeper, as if the earth itself had bled into shape. A crack split the air, thunder without storm. The ship shuddered. Far away, through mist, a red glow pulsed low on the horizon, like a heartbeat beneath ash. Tormund's eyes shone. "We're in it now," he breathed. Jon's mouth went dry. The fog pressed close, heavy as a hand. He could not see 10 paces beyond the bow. The world had shrunk to lantern light and drifting ash. Then, from somewhere ahead, a sound rolled across the water. Low, vast, not thunder. A roar. It was so deep Jon felt it in his bones. The crew froze. One man whimpered. Another fell to his knees, whispering prayers. Jon's heart slammed against his ribs. He knew that sound. He had heard it once beneath the sky of King's Landing, and it had carried grief and rage and loss. "Drogon," he whispered. Melisandre's voice came like ice over flame. "Or something older," she said. The roar came again, and in its wake the fog trembled as if afraid. Ahead, a faint light flickered. Golden, steady, impossible. Not the glow of lava, not the pale shimmer of mist. A torch, then another, then a line of them, stretching into the gray like a path. Davos's voice went hoarse. "That can't be," he murmured. Jon stared as the lights grew clearer. They were set along a shoreline. Stone and black sand, the fog curling above it. Shapes moved there. Men, armor glinting, spears raised. Not ruined, not dead, alive. The ship scraped against black sand with a sound like a blade drawn over stone. Men lowered the gangplank slowly, hands shaking. Davos went first because Davos always went first when fear threatened to turn men into cowards. He stepped onto the shore and looked around, eyes narrowing. The ground beneath their boots was warm. Not hot enough to burn, but warm as a hearthstone. Ash drifted in soft spirals, settling on shoulders and hair. The air smelled of smoke and salt and something else. Metal, sharp and clean, like a forge. Jon followed, ghost at his side. The wolf's fur was flecked with black. His lips pulled back, teeth bared, a low rumble in his throat. Tormund stepped onto the sand and stamped as if testing it. "Feels like a giant's bed," he muttered, then looked up at the line of soldiers ahead. His grin faded. "And those aren't giants." They stood perhaps 30 paces away, unmoving. Their armor caught torchlight and threw it back in pale gleams. Scale plates overlapped like fish skin. Their helms were smooth, ridged at the brow, faces hidden behind narrow slits. On their shields was a symbol Jon recognized with a jolt. A 3-headed dragon. Valyrian, but not the dead Valyria of tales. Not relics dug from ash. These men moved with discipline. Their spears were held steady. Their torches did not flicker in wind. A figure stepped forward from the line. Taller than the rest, cloak dark, helm removed. A man with hair like silver wire, skin bronze from heat, eyes the color of old steel. His face was calm in a way Jon did not trust. Men in the north looked calm before battle because they had accepted death. This man looked calm because he did not expect to lose. He spoke in a language that sounded like High Valyrian but smoother, refined by centuries of tongues. Davos answered in rough trade Valyrian, halting but understandable. "We come in peace," he said. "We seek passage. We seek." The silver-haired man's gaze slid past Davos to Jon. His eyes sharpened slightly, and Jon felt, absurdly, as if he were being weighed like coin. The man spoke again, and Melisandre stepped forward. answering without hesitation in perfect Valyrian. Her voice carried authority, as if she belonged here more than the rest of them. The soldier's expression changed then, not to fear, not to awe, but to wary respect. His eyes flicked to the ash on her shoulders, to the charred hem of her robe. He replied. Melisandre listened, then turned slightly toward Jon, speaking in the common tongue. "He asks your names," she said. Davos answered quickly. "Ser Davos Seaworth," he said and gestured. "Jon Snow, Tormund Giantsbane." He glanced at Melisandre, jaw tight. "And her." Melisandre lifted her chin. "Melisandre," she said, "of Ass High." The man's brows rose minutely at that. He spoke again, and this time Melisandre's lips tightened. "He says," she translated slowly, "that Ass High is a story told to frighten children in Volantis, and that stories have a way of walking here lately." Tormund leaned close to Jon and whispered, "I don't like him. He talks like he's never been punched." Jon kept his eyes on the silver-haired man. "Tell him," Jon said quietly, "we are here for Drogon." Melisandre's gaze flicked to him, something like warning in it. She turned and spoke the words in Valyrian. The man's face did not change. Only his eyes sharpened again. He replied short and clipped. Melisandre's throat worked. "He says," she translated, "that the black dragon is not yours. He says it belongs to no one, and that if you have come to bind it, you will die." Davos swallowed. "We didn't come to bind it," he said quickly. "We came to." Jon stepped forward before Davos could finish. He met the man's steel-gray eyes. "I came to find it," he said, voice steady. "To know where it is. To keep it from falling into the wrong hands." The man listened as Melisandre translated. Then he gave a small, almost amused exhale. He spoke again. Melisandre's voice went quieter. "He says," she murmured, "that all hands are wrong." Above them, the fog shifted. A shadow passed overhead, vast and smooth, blocking torchlight for a heartbeat. The air moved, heavy, like the beat of a wing. Ghosts snarled, fur bristling. Tormund's head tilted back, mouth parting. Jon's heart stopped. Through the gray, for a split second, he saw a shape. Not just a dragon, but something bigger than any dragon he had imagined. A curve of scaled belly like a cliff, a tail thick as a tower. The fog swallowed it again as quickly as it had revealed it. The silver-haired man watched their reactions with a faint tightening at the corner of his mouth, like a man satisfied that strangers had finally understood their place. Then he spoke, and the soldiers shifted, forming a wider corridor. Melisandre turned to them. Ash clung to her lashes. "He says you will come," she whispered. "You will be judged, and if you bring winter's stain into their land, they will burn you until even your name is smoke." Davos's voice came strained. "Judged by who?" Melisandre's eyes lifted toward the dark inland, where the fog glowed faintly as if lit from within. "By Valyria," she said. "By what survived the doom." Jon felt the warm sand beneath his boots, the ash falling like snow. He looked at the line of torches leading into the mist. He had marched into darkness before. He had done it for duty, for love, for a world that never thanked him. Now he walked for something else, to face the truth of what they had defeated and what they had not. He stepped forward. The Valyrian soldiers fell in around them, spears angled, torches held high. The ship behind them creaked, suddenly small, suddenly distant. Jon did not look back. The path into Valyria was not a road so much as a declaration. Black stone rose from the sand in a smooth curve, wide enough for wagons. Its surface was warm beneath their boots, and it drank torchlight without shining. The mist clung low, curling around ankles, brushing faces with damp cold. Somewhere deeper inland, a red glow pulsed, not constant but rhythmic, as if the earth had a heart. The Valyrian guards moved with silent precision. Their steps made almost no sound. Jon wondered what it took to train men to that kind of discipline in a land built of fire and fear. Davos walked close to Jon, shoulders tight. He kept his eyes on everything. The guards, the mist, the stone, Melisandre. "This feels wrong," Davos murmured under his breath. "No ruins, no screams, just order." "Order can be worse," Jon replied quietly. Tormund leaned in from the other side. "If they try to take my beard," he whispered fiercely, "I'll kill them." Davos shot him a look. "For once, could you not threaten murder?" Tormund considered. "No." Ghost patted at Jon's heel, hackles lifted. Every so often the direwolf's head snapped toward the mist, ears twitching. Once he let out a low, warning sound that made the nearest guard glance down, hand tightening on spear. Jon listened. At first he heard only water dripping somewhere unseen, the hiss of steam, the soft crackle of torches. Then, beneath it, something else. A faint whispering, like voices too far away to form words. "Do you hear that?" Davos asked softly. Jon nodded. "Yes." Melisandre did not look back, but her voice floated to them. "The land remembers," she said. "It speaks through stone, through ash, through bone." Tormund scowled. "I don't like lands that talk," he muttered. "Lands should stay quiet and let you step on them." The mist thinned suddenly, as if pushed aside. They crested a rise, and the world opened. Jon's breath caught in his throat. A city lay ahead. Not ruins, not broken towers half swallowed by lava. A city of black stone and gold, terraces carved into the sides of volcanic hills. Bridges arched over channels of steaming water. Towers rose, slender and sharp, capped with metal that caught the faint red glow from beneath and turned it into warm light. Lanterns burned along balconies and streets. Smoke curled from chimneys like the breath of a living beast. People moved there. Shadows at first, then shapes. Men and women in pale robes, in armor, in bright sashes. Children ran along a balcony. A group of workers hauled something heavy. Stone, metal, something shining. Life. Jon's heart hammered. For years he had carried Valyria in his mind as a grave. The doom, the smoking sea, the broken peninsula where dragons had died screaming. Every map painted it as a scar. Every sailor spoke of it with spittle and superstition. And yet here it stood, thriving, breathing, lit with torchlight like any city at dusk. Only stranger, older, heavy with secrets. Davos stopped without meaning to. His mouth opened. "Seven save us," he whispered. Tormund stared openly. "I was promised doom," he said, sounding almost offended. "This looks like a rich man's fever dream." Melisandre's eyes gleamed. She looked not surprised but satisfied, like a woman arriving at a destination she had always known existed. "The world needed Valyria dead," she murmured, "so it could pretend it was safe." A horn sounded from within the city, low and resonant, not like a war call but like an announcement. The sound rolled across stone and mist, and Jon felt it vibrate in his chest. Valyrian guards led them down toward a great gate set into a black wall. Above it, a carved relief of a dragon coiled around a crown. Not three-headed, but many-headed, heads overlapping like a knot of serpents. The symbol made Jon's skin prickle. They passed beneath the arch. Inside, the air was warmer, thick with the scent of metal and smoke and something floral, strange and sweet. People stopped to stare as they passed. Faces turned. Pale-haired Valyrians with eyes of lilac and gray, darker-skinned folk with Valyrian features softened by generations of mixing. Some wore tattoos of fire across their throats. Some bore scars that looked like old burns. No one looked afraid. Some looked curious. Some looked irritated. A few looked hungry. A woman stepped out from a doorway as they passed, tall, hair braided with gold wire. She wore a collar of black metal that gleamed like obsidian. Her eyes fixed on Jon, and her lips curled slightly, as if tasting him. She spoke in Valyrian. The guards did not answer, but their pace quickened. Melisandre's shoulders stiffened. Jon leaned close. "What did she say?" Melisandre's voice went low. "She said," she murmured, That winter's blood walks their streets again. Jon's throat went dry. They know about the Night King. Melisandre's eyes stayed forward. They know more, she whispered. Much more. They were taken up a wide stair toward a hall built into the side of a volcanic rise. The stone there was polished, smooth, as if heat had licked it into shine. Carved along the walls were scenes. Dragons in flight, men offering blades, crowned figures wreathed in frost. A city burning, a circle of fire holding back a wave of darkness. Jon's gaze snagged on the frost-crowned figures. There were 12, arranged in a ring, their faces stylized but unmistakably human. Kings with jagged crowns, eyes hollow, hands raised as if commanding the dead. Jon felt his pulse in his throat. Davos saw it too. His face went pale. "That's not a story," he whispered. "No," Melisandre said. "It's a warning carved in stone, so even liars cannot burn it away." At the top of the stair, the doors of the hall stood open. Warm light spilled out, golden and steady. Beyond, Jon glimpsed a great chamber with pillars carved like dragon spines and a floor of black glass that reflected torchlight like a dark mirror. A figure waited inside, seated on a low dais, not a throne, but a seat that suggested authority without pretending to be a crown. When the figure stood, Jon's breath caught. The man was older, hair silver white and long, face lined but strong. His eyes were pale lilac, and when they fell on Jon felt, absurdly, as if the man were looking through furs and flesh and into the cold memory inside him. The man spoke, voice calm, caring without effort. Melisandre translated, voice tight. "He welcomes you," she said. "To Valyria." Jon swallowed. "Who is he?" Melisandre's eyes did not leave the dais. "A Dragonlord," she whispered. "And a keeper." "A keeper of what?" Davos murmured. Melisandre's voice came like a blade drawn slowly. "Of the kings you thought you killed." The hall swallowed sound. Torchlight burned in sconces shaped like dragon jaws, flames steady, bright. Their reflections wavered beneath Jon's boots in the black glass floor, making it seem as if he stood above a lake of dark fire. The air was warm enough that sweat prickled under his furs, but a strange chill lived beneath it, like cold stone hidden under a hearth. Attendants lined the sides of the chamber. Some wore armor, pale and close-fitting, blades at their hips. Others wore robes with collars of metal. A few carried staffs capped with black crystal that caught the light and held it. Their faces were calm, but their eyes tracked every movement. Tormund shifted his weight. Jon could feel the big man's readiness like a drawn bowstring. Davos stood stiff as a mast, hands clasped behind his back, expression carefully neutral. He looked like a man trying to remember every lesson about courts and kings while standing in a place where those lessons might be useless. Melisandre stood half a step behind Jon, and for the first time since she had returned, her confidence wavered. Her fingers flexed at her sides. Her breath came shallow. She looked like a woman standing before an altar that might consume her. The elder on the dais studied them. His gaze lingered on Jon, then on Melisandre, then swept over Davos and Tormund. He spoke, slow and measured. Melisandre translated, voice tight. "He welcomes you," she said. "To Valyria." Jon swallowed. "Who is he?" Melisandre's eyes did not leave the dais. "A Dragonlord," she whispered. "And a keeper." "A keeper of what?" Davos murmured. Melisandre's voice came like a blade drawn slowly. "Of the kings you thought you killed." The hall's warmth seemed to shift, as if the torches leaned closer to hear. The elder's pale lilac eyes settled on Jon with the stillness of a judge who has already read the sentence. He spoke again, and though Jon did not understand the words, he understood the tone. Measured, certain, and edged with contempt. Melisandre's voice thinned. "He asks why winter sends its bastard here," she murmured. Jon's jaw tightened at the word, old as his first pain. "Tell him," Jon said. "I came for a dragon." Melisandre spoke the words in Valyrian. The elder's eyes narrowed slightly. He replied, and an attendant, young, hair braided tight, laughed softly, as if amused at a child's demand. Melisandre's mouth tightened. "He says," she murmured, "that many have come for dragons. Most have fed them." Jon kept his voice steady. "Drogon flew from Westeros," he said. "He belongs to no one, but he is dangerous. If men here mean to chain him—" The elder cut him off with a raised hand, a gesture so practiced it felt like law. He spoke again, sharper now, and the black glass floor seemed to shiver beneath Jon's boots, as if something deep in the stone had stirred. Melisandre's throat worked. "He says Drogon is a broken blade," she translated. "A dragon without a rider is a storm, destructive, yes, but directionless. He says you fear men will wield him." Her eyes flicked to Jon. "He asks if that is why you came, to wield him yourself." Jon felt Davos tense beside him. Tormund made a quiet, growling sound in his throat. Jon's voice came low. "Tell him no," he said. "I came to stop that. I came because I owe him." His words caught, and he forced them out. "I owe his rider." A faint shift rippled through the attendants at that. The elder's expression did not change, but his eyes sharpened. He spoke, and his voice carried something like boredom at human grief. Melisandre swallowed. "He says riders die," she whispered. "Dragons remain. He says grief is not a claim." Jon's anger rose, cold and controlled. "Then what is?" he asked, letting the words carry. "What gives you the right to judge me? What gives you the right to keep this place hidden and let the world think it dead?" The elder's gaze held Jon like a hook. He spoke, and the torches along the walls seemed to lean inward, as if drawn. Melisandre's face went pale. "He says," she murmured, "that the world was kept alive by believing Valyria died, that fear is a wall stronger than ice." Her eyes lifted to the carved relief on the far wall. 12 frost-crowned figures in a circle. "He says Valyria did not hide out of shame. It hid to contain what it had made." Jon's mouth went dry. "The Night King," he whispered. The elder spoke again, and this time his tone carried open disdain. Melisandre's breath caught. "He says," she translated, "that you met a servant, a shard, a prince cast out of Winter's court." Her eyes glittered with dread. "He says there are 12, and you killed one who was least." Silence fell like a blade. Davos's face was ashen. "Least?" he echoed softly, as if tasting poison. Tormund's laugh came out sharp and humorless. "That's a bad joke," he said. "Tell him to stop talking like a crow with a bellyache." Melisandre did not translate. She could not seem to move. Jon stared at the relief of the 12 kings. He remembered the Night King's stare at Hardhome, calm and certain. He remembered Winterfell's dark, the dead rising, the way the cold had felt like a mind pressing against his own. "Least." Jon's voice went rough. "Why would you let one loose?" he demanded. "Why send it to Westeros?" The elder's gaze flicked, briefly, toward Melisandre. He spoke one short sentence. Melisandre flinched as if struck. Jon looked at her. "What did he say?" Melisandre swallowed. "He said," she whispered, "that you were supposed to fail." The elder continued, voice calm again, as if discussing weather. "He says," Melisandre forced out, "that the world beyond Valyria grows complacent when it thinks monsters are dead. He says fear keeps kingdoms sharp. He says a little winter reminds men of fire." Her eyes squeezed shut for a heartbeat. "He says the trial in Westeros was meant to measure whether your world could survive what is coming." Davos's control cracked. "What is comin'?" "G?" he snapped. The elder's eyes gleamed. He spoke, and the torch flames along the walls leaned inward, as if drawn. Melisandre's voice came out almost soundless. "The seals weaken," she whispered. "The kings stir. One has tasted freedom. Others, listen." Ghost's growl rose, louder now, a warning that vibrated in the hall. Several attendants shifted, hands to blades. The elder lifted his hand again, and they stilled. Jon's voice cut through, steady despite the hollow in his chest. "Where is Drogon?" the elder answered, and for the first time something like reverent hunger flickered across his face. Melisandre translated, voice shaking. "He says the black dragon flew to the inner Caldera," she whispered, "to the place where dragons are born and kings are buried." Her eyes lifted to Jon, haunted. "He says Drogon went there because he heard a call." Jon's mouth went dry. "A call from who?" The elder spoke, and though Jon did not understand the words, the chamber seemed to darken around them. Melisandre's eyes widened. "From the first flame," she breathed. "From the oldest dragon. From the heart of Valyria." Deep beneath the hall, a sound rolled, low and vast, like a mountain sighing in its sleep. The black glass floor trembled again, subtle but unmistakable. The elder watched Jon's face as if reading it. Then he spoke one final sentence. Melisandre swallowed hard. "He says you will not go alone," she whispered, "because if you bring winter's stain to the first flame, Valyria will burn you. And if you do not bring it, winter will come anyway." Jon stared at the 12 carved crowns, at torchlight reflected in black glass, at the faces of people who had lived beside doom so long they called it order. He thought of Westeros, of the wall, of Winterfell, of the fragile peace beyond the dead. He thought of a dragon flying alone through clouds, carrying grief the way Jon carried it, unwilling to set it down. Jon's voice came steady, though his chest felt hollow. "Then take me," he said. "Show me this Caldera." The elder's lips curved faintly, not a smile but something colder. He lifted his hand, and the torches along the hall flared in unison, as if the fire itself had just drawn breath to speak. The torches flared and held, steady as if the hall itself had chosen to see them more clearly. For a heartbeat, the black glass beneath Jon's boots reflected not only flame but faces. 12 pale crowns, jagged as broken teeth, hovering where no men stood. Then the reflections settled into ordinary darkness again, and the illusion was gone as quickly as breath on winter air. Archon Maelor Vesheris rose from his seat without hurry. The attendants along the walls did not move, yet Jon felt their attention tighten like a net. The Archon descended the steps, his boots making no sound on the glass. When he reached the floor, he stopped before Jon, close enough that Jon could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, and the faint sheen on his skin as if he lived in heat that never truly left him. Maelor studied Jon's face the way a smith studies a blade, measuring the balance, the flaws, the temper. He spoke softly, and the words sounded like a knife sliding from a sheath. Melisandre translated, her voice thin with strain. "He says the cold clings to you," she murmured, "not as frost on cloth, as a memory in bone." Jon swallowed. He felt Davos shift beside him, the older man's anger pressing against restraint. Tormund's hand hovered near his knife as if it might leap of its own will. Ghost's growl reverberated, low and continuous. Maelor lifted his hand, palm open. One of the robed attendants stepped forward and placed something into it. A shard of black glass shaped like a dagger, its edge too perfect, too clean. Dragon glass, obsidian. It caught torchlight and drank it, leaving only a faint gleam along the blade like a dark smile. Maelor held it out, handle first. The gesture looked like an offer, felt like a test. Jon's fingers closed around the hilt. The glass was warm at first touch, then it seemed to cool as if it drew heat from his skin. He felt a faint sting in his palm, not a cut, but a pressure, like the blade pressing against something inside him. Maelor spoke again. Melisandre's lashes fluttered. "He says you will bleed," she whispered. "Not here, not now, but you will bleed for what you carry. He asks if you accept that." Jon stared at the obsidian in his hand. He thought of Winterfell's darkness, of dead eyes watching, of Arya's blade flashing. He thought of Daenerys's final breath against his throat. He thought of Drogon screaming, a sound too big for any living thing to hold. "I've been bleeding for years," Jon said, and lifted his eyes to the Archon. "Tell him I accept." Melisandre spoke the words in Valyrian. Mailer's expression did not change, but something like approval flickered in his pale eyes. He turned slightly and spoke to the soldiers at the hall's edge. They moved at once, quiet as shadows. The corridor they formed did not feel like hospitality. It felt like containment. Davos's voice came controlled and sharp. "If you mean to imprison us," Mailer cut him off with a small, dismissive flick of his fingers. The Archon's gaze lingered on Davos briefly, as if noting a stubborn knot in rope. He spoke. Melisandre translated with reluctance. "He says you are guests," she murmured. "And also risks. He says guests are fed. Risks are watched." Tormund barked a laugh. "At least he's honest." Mailer turned his eyes to Tormund, a faint curiosity in them, like a man encountering an unfamiliar animal. He spoke again, and a few attendants smiled in a way that showed too much teeth. Melisandre's mouth tightened. "He asks if you are the giant slayer," she said. Tormund puffed his chest. "Tell him I'm the giant friend," he said brightly. "And the giant drinker." Melisandre did not translate the second part. She did translate the first, and Mailer's brows rose, a brief twitch of amusement. Then the Archon's attention returned to Jon. He stepped closer, not invading but claiming the space. His gaze dropped to Jon's throat, to the faint scar there, and Jon felt suddenly exposed, as if the hall knew every death he'd ever carried. Mailer spoke one last sentence before turning away. Melisandre's voice came low. "He says the inner Caldera is not a place you walk into," she whispered. "It is a place that decides whether you are allowed to remain a man." Mailer turned, cloak shifting like smoke, and began to walk. The guards moved. The corridor opened. Jon tightened his grip on the obsidian blade and stepped forward, following. Behind him, Davos muttered, so quiet only Jon heard. "I've stood in too many halls like this. They all think they're the center of the world." Jon did not answer. He watched the Archon's back as they crossed the black glass floor, and he wondered which was worse. Men who thought they were gods, or men who had lived so long beside gods that they no longer feared becoming monsters. Outside the hall, the air smelled of heat and ash and something faintly sweet, like blossoms burning. A distant roar rolled through the city's bones, deep, vast, patient. Not a warning, a reminder. They were given rooms carved into the side of the volcanic rise, stone chambers smoothed by heat, furnished with dark wood and metal that gleamed like wet obsidian. There were no windows, only vents high in the walls that breathed warm air in slow pulses. The door was thick and banded with iron. Jon noted the lock. He noted, too, the guards outside whose footsteps never fully faded. Davos laid a map across a stone table. It was not a Westerosi chart with crude coastlines and proud castles. This map was etched on thin sheets of hammered black metal, the lines cut so fine they looked like hair. Rivers of lava were marked in red enamel. Passes, vents, bridges, everything rendered with unsettling precision. "This is not a dead land," Davos said, voice tight. He traced a finger over the map's spine. Valyria's great peninsula, its heart a mass of calderas and ridges. "This is a kingdom," Tormund snorted. "A kingdom that smells like a cooking pot left on too long." Jon sat with Longclaw across his knees, the sword's pommel cool beneath his hand. The obsidian dagger Mailer had given him lay beside the blade, black on black. He stared at the map until the lines blurred. "They sent one of them," Jon said quietly. "On purpose." Davos's jaw clenched so hard the muscles jumped. He said, "and my blood boils for it. All those dead, all those winters, as if it was some test." Melisandre stood by the brazier, hands held near the flame but not touching it. The fire's light painted her face in shifting gold. Her eyes looked too large in the hollows of her cheeks. "It was a test," she said, "and a lesson. They wanted your world to remember fear. Fear makes men sharpen swords. Fear makes kings obey prophets." Her lips curled, bitter. "Fear makes people like me useful." Davos rounded on her. "Don't you dare," he snapped. Don't you dare pretend you're only a tool. You chose. You burned. Melisandre flinched, just slightly. Yes, she said, and her voice did not break. I chose. And I was chosen in turn. That is how it works. Chains on chains. Tormund watched them, eyes narrowed. In my land, he said. We kill the man who tries to put chains on you. We don't argue about whether the chain is holy. Davos's breath hissed through his teeth. He looked at Jon. What do we do? He asked, and for a moment the Onion Knight looked old. Older than salt could make him. They've got dragons. They've got soldiers. They've got gods know what else beneath their stones. We're in their throat. Jon stared at the obsidian dagger. He remembered the way it had cooled in his hand, as if recognizing him. We find Drogon, he said, and we leave. Melisandre's laugh was soft and joyless. If the Caldera allows, she murmured. The door's lock clicked. Ghost rose at once, silent, hackles lifting, lips peeling back. Tormund's hand moved to his knife. Davos's fingers curled into fists. The door opened, and a man stepped in with a measured calm, flanked by 2 guards who remained outside. He wore a robe the color of ash with a collar of black metal. His hair was pale, bound back, and his eyes were a clear gray that gave nothing away. He bowed, shallow. I am Valar Sithores, he said in the common tongue, his accent precise. Archivist to Archon Maelor Vesheris, and your guide in matters of our law. Tormund eyed him. You look like you've never wrestled anyone, he said. Valar did not react. His gaze moved to Jon, and Jon felt again that unsettling sense of being weighed. You carry the winter's mark, Valar said plainly. It is audible here. Davos stepped forward, anger sharpened into courage. Audible, he echoed. What does that mean? Valar's eyes flicked to the brazier's flame. The fire leaned, faintly, toward Jon as if listening. It means, Valar said, that what you faced left resonance. A song in the stone. The inner Caldera hears songs. Melisandre's fingers trembled. They will test him, she whispered. Valar inclined his head. Yes, he said, at dawn. If he refuses, he may remain in the guest chambers until he chooses to leave our shores. His lips curved slightly. If he attempts to leave without being tested, he will not reach the sea. Davos's face went dark. That's not an offer. It is the only mercy you will receive, Valar replied. Jon stood slowly. What kind of test? He asked. Valar's gaze held his. A truth, he said. One you may not enjoy. Jon thought of truth. Of all the truths that had cut him open and never healed. Fine, Jon said. Tell the Archon I'll meet his dawn. Valar bowed again, deeper this time, and withdrew. The door shut with a soft finality. For a long moment, only the brazier crackled. Then Tormund exhaled, loud. I don't like this place, he said simply. It smiles too much without laughing. Davos rubbed his forehead with his maimed hand. I swear, he muttered. If this ends with you on another bloody throne. Jon cut him off with a look. No thrones, he said. Only answers. Ghost's ears remained pinned toward the door, listening to the guards outside. As if he could hear the city breathing. As if he could hear something else beneath it. Patient and cold, waiting for dawn. By nightfall, Valyria had become a maze of heat and watchers. They were allowed into the streets only with an escort. 2 pale armored guards who moved like shadows and did not speak. Valar Sithores had offered, politely, to accompany them, but Davos had refused with a curt nod and a hard stare. Jon suspected Valar had accompanied them anyway, unseen in the city's many eyes. Lanterns lit the streets with a gold glow that softened the black stone. Steam curled from grates in the ground. Somewhere nearby, metal rang, hammer on anvil, steady as a heartbeat. The city smelled of smoke and spices and something like sweet resin, burning. Tormund walked as if daring the city to object to his presence. He stared at everything. He prodded a carved pillar with a finger and declared it too smooth to be trusted. He sniffed at a basket of red fruit and muttered that it looked like bloody onions. He waved at a child who stared at him with solemn curiosity. The child's mother pulled him back as if Tormund were plague. Davos watched the crowds with a sailor's caution. "They're looking," he murmured. Jon felt it too, the weight of eyes constant and assessing. Not fear, not awe, interest, calculation. Melisandre moved differently here. She was still contained, as if walking through a place that might swallow her if she stepped wrong. The city's fire did not welcome her the way Westeros's had, pressed against her, testing. They reached a square where a fountain of steaming water spilled over black stone carved into the shape of coiled serpents. Men and women gathered there, talking in low Valyrian, their voices musical and sharp. On the far side, a group of armored soldiers stood in formation, spears upright, their helms reflecting lantern light. Tormund's gaze snagged on them. He grinned. "Ah," he said, "proper men with sticks." Before Jon could stop him, Tormund walked straight toward the formation. Davos cursed under his breath. "Gods, no." The soldiers did not move until Tormund was within a few paces. Then one stepped forward, taller than the rest, cloak edged with dark red, spear angled across his body like a bar. He removed his helm. Silver hair fell to his shoulders. His face was hard, young but carved by discipline. His eyes were a cold gray, not lilac. He looked at Tormund as if Tormund were mud on polished stone. He spoke in Valyrian, the words clipped. Tormund blinked. "I don't speak whatever that is," he said cheerfully. "But I can tell you're insulting me." The captain's mouth tightened. He spoke again, and the guards behind him shifted subtly, spears angling. Jon stepped forward quickly. "Enough," he said in the common tongue, then looked to Melisandre. "Translate." Melisandre's gaze flicked between the men. "He says," she murmured, "that no wild beast walks unchained in Valyria. He asks where your leash is." Tormund's grin turned sharp. "Tell him my leash is my fist," he said, "and if he wants it, he can come take it." Davos hissed, "Tormund." Jon lifted a hand, palm down. He met the captain's cold eyes. "Tell him," Jon said quietly, "that we came in peace." Melisandre spoke the words in Valyrian. The captain listened, expression unchanged. He replied, short and cutting. Melisandre's lips pressed tight. "He says," she translated, "that peace is a word men use when they are too weak to enforce their will. He says your presence draws attention from below. He says you make the stones uneasy." Jon felt a chill creep under his skin at that. The city did feel alive and not kindly. A voice cut through the tension, light and sharp. "Captain R'hllor Cytheres," it said in Valyrian, and then, to Jon's surprise, in the common tongue as well, "if you stab the tall barbarian, you will spend the night filling out incident scrolls." A woman stepped from the crowd near the fountain. She wore no armor, only a simple robe belted with leather, stained with ink at the sleeves. Her hair was pale silver, braided tight. Her face was narrow, her eyes a deep violet that took in everything at once. She carried a satchel heavy with scrolls and charcoal. Captain R'hllor's eyes narrowed. He spoke her name like a warning. She smiled without warmth. "Ellyra Coheres," Melisandre whispered, and there was something like old knowledge in her tone. "A lesser bloodline, a scholar house." Ellyra Coheres dipped her head toward Jon. "Jon Snow," she said, tasting his name with curiosity. "The dead man who refuses to stay dead. You are difficult. Our city loves difficulties. It believes they sharpen the mind." Tormund blinked at her. "I like her," he announced. "She talks like she wants to steal my boots." Ellyra's eyes flicked to him. "And you are Tormund Giantsbane," she said. "Your stories reached us through sailors who exaggerate. I am pleased to find you are even more exhausting in person." Davos stepped forward, wary. "Who are you to speak to a captain like that?" he demanded. Ellyra's smile turned faintly amused. "Someone who writes the records that decide whether he keeps his rank." she said simply. Then she looked at Captain Reeler. "Archon Mailer wants them intact for dawn. Let them breathe." Captain Reeler's jaw clenched. He stared at Jon for a long moment, then lowered his spear. He replaced his helm with a sharp motion and stepped back into formation. As he did, Aelyra leaned slightly toward Jon, voice dropping. "Do not mistake restraint for kindness," she murmured. "If you fail the dawn test, Captain Reeler will gladly put you back on your ship in pieces." Jon's gaze held hers. "Then I won't fail," he said. Aelyra's eyes glittered. "We shall see," she whispered, and for a heartbeat Jon saw something behind her calm. Fear, buried deep, like a coal hidden under ash. Some truths burn colder than fire. She stepped back into the crowd, and the square's hum resumed as if nothing had happened. But Ghost remained rigid, staring at the fountain's steaming water as if he expected it to freeze. Jon felt the obsidian dagger at his belt, a weight like a promise. Dawn was coming, and Valyria was watching. They were permitted to see the forges before dawn, Valar's gesture of hospitality. Jon suspected it was also another test, showing them what power looked like here, so they would understand the shape of their own smallness. The Forge district sat lower in the city, nearer to the pulsing red glow that seeped from cracks in the stone. Heat thickened the air until it felt like breathing through cloth. The streets widened, and the buildings here were less elegant, more brutal. Arches reinforced with iron, walls banded with dark metal, vents that belched steam in slow breaths. The sound hit Jon first. Hammering, constant and rhythmic, layered with the roar of furnaces. It was like standing inside the chest of some enormous beast, listening to its heart. They entered a courtyard ringed by high walls. Men and women moved with practiced speed, faces streaked with soot, arms bare and scarred. Great braziers burned along the edges, flames bright and steady despite the open air. Above, bridges linked towers, and on those bridges stood guards watching downward like hawks. Then the courtyard's far gate opened, and something huge emerged. At first Jon thought it was a moving wall of bronze. Then the shape shifted, and he saw the curve of a neck, the flex of a wing folding tight, the glint of an eye like molten gold. A dragon, not Drogon. Its scales were bronze and green, patterned like old coins. Its wings were veined with darker lines, and when it exhaled, smoke poured from its nostrils in slow, lazy streams. It wore chains, thick black links looped around its forelimbs and neck, held by a half-dozen dragon keepers braced like men trying to anchor a storm. Tormund's mouth hung open. "By all the gods," he breathed. It's like a mountain that learned to fly." Davos's face had gone pale, his eyes wide. "I thought the tales were," he whispered, then cut himself off, unable to find words. Melisandre watched the dragon with a strange intensity. Not awe, not fear. Hunger, perhaps, or recognition. Aelyra Coheres stood slightly apart, scroll in hand, her ink-stained fingers tapping the parchment absently as if noting measurements. Valar Sithores spoke quietly to Jon. "This is Visophian," he said in the common tongue, the name careful and precise. "A forge drake bred for heat endurance. He hauls slag from the lower vents. He is small by our standards." Jon felt his stomach drop at the word small. Visophian's head turned slowly, eyes narrowing as he caught Jon's scent. The dragon's pupils tightened. Smoke thickened at its nostrils. One of the dragon keepers murmured a Valyrian phrase, soothing and sharp, and tugged the chain. The dragon ignored him, stared at Jon, and in that gaze Jon felt something like memory. Dragonstone's halls, the scent of burned stone, Daenerys standing between him and fire, hair whipping in wind. Jon's muscles went taut, every instinct screaming that this creature could end him with a breath. Visophian leaned forward slightly, chains scraping. Heat washed over Jon's face, and sparks drifted from a nearby furnace like golden insects. Ghost growled low, but he did not retreat. The wolf's eyes held the dragon's stare with stubborn defiance. Tormund, foolish as ever, took one step forward. "Hello," he said loudly, as if greeting a large horse. "You're ugly." Davos grabbed his arm hard and yanked him back. "Are you trying to die?" he hissed. Tormund grinned. "If it eats me, I'll punch its teeth." Valar's lips twitched, faintly amused, but his eyes stayed cold. "Do not provoke him," he said. "He is working, and he remembers insult." Ellaira looked up from her scroll. "Everything here remembers," she murmured, and there was no humor in it. As if to prove her point, the dragon suddenly opened its jaws slightly, and a low sound rolled out. Not a roar, but a rumble that vibrated through the stone under their feet. The courtyard's braziers flickered. The air shimmered. For an instant, Jon tasted ice. He blinked, and the taste was gone, swallowed by heat and smoke. He looked around sharply. Davos had stiffened too, his eyes narrowing as if he'd felt something wrong. Melisandre's hand lifted toward her throat, fingers pressing the skin as if checking for a pulse. Her eyes had gone distant. Ellaira's voice came low. "Do you feel it?" she asked Jon softly, in the common tongue now, her accent lighter than Valar's. "The way the air stutters, like a heartbeat skipping?" Jon swallowed. "Yes," he said. Ellaira's violet eyes held his. "It is not the heat," she whispered. "It is the seals." Valar's jaw tightened. "Enough," he said sharply in Valyrian, and Ellaira fell silent, though her gaze did not soften. The dragon keepers tugged the chains again, harder. Vizophian finally turned his head away from Jon, muscles rippling under bronze scales. He moved forward, each step heavy enough to make the courtyard tremble. The chains scraped across black stone, sparks jumping where metal kissed rock. As the dragon passed, Jon caught a glimpse of scars along its flank. Long pale marks that looked like old frostbite burned into scale. Jon's skin prickled. Frostbite on a dragon. He looked at Melisandre. "What is happening?" he murmured. Melisandre's lips moved without sound, as if praying, but her eyes were not on the dragon. They were on the vents in the stone, on the faint red glow beneath, watching as if she expected it to turn blue. "You came for a black dragon," she whispered, "and you will find him. But first, Valyria will show you what it truly fears." Davos stared at the bronze beast disappearing into the forge's shadow. His voice came hoarse. "If that's small," he muttered, "what in seven hells is big?" Ellaira answered without looking at him. "Big," she said quietly, "is why our city still stands." And somewhere deep beneath the courtyard, a slow pulse thrummed again, like a heart, like a warning, like something waking far below. Dawn came without softness. Valyria's dawn was not a pale pink wash across sky. It was a deepening of heat, a thinning of mist, a sharpening of shadows. The city's lanterns dimmed as if commanded. The red pulse beneath the stone grew brighter, and the air tasted more strongly of metal. They were led downward into the volcanic rise, through corridors carved smooth and dark. The guards said nothing. Valar Sithires walked ahead, hands clasped, a man escorting them into a court that did not need walls to feel like a prison. The chamber they entered was round and vast, its walls polished obsidian that reflected torchlight in distorted streaks. Runes were carved into the black stone in concentric rings, each symbol cut so deep it seemed to drink light. The floor was a mosaic of black glass and pale stone that formed a circle within circle, like ripples in dark water. Archon Maelor Vesheris waited at the chamber's center. Around him stood priests in robes edged with metal, their faces solemn. Some held torches, others held staffs capped with black crystal. Their eyes were fixed on Jon with the stillness of men watching a blade being tempered, interested, detached, merciless. Maelor spoke, and the words echoed strangely off the obsidian, as if repeated by the stone itself. Melisandre's voice trembled as she translated. "He says the winter you faced left a splinter in you," she murmured. "He says if you bring that splinter into the inner Caldera, it may wake what sleeps. He says you will be tested for resonance." Davos's hands clenched. "Resonance," he spat softly, "like he's weighing grain." Maelor did not look at Davos. He looked only at Jon. A priest stepped forward and offered a shallow bowl of dark liquid. It smelled of smoke and something sharp, like crushed herbs and old blood. Jon did not reach for it. He met Maelor's gaze. Maelor spoke again. Melisandre swallowed. "He says you may refuse," she whispered, "and you may leave Valyria under guard, or you may accept, and if you are unclean, you will die here." Tormund's laugh was a harsh bark. "That's not a choice," he said loudly. A few priests glanced at him with faint irritation, like men distracted by insects. Jon took a slow breath. He remembered being dragged into rooms like this by men with power and certainty. He remembered oath words and knives. He remembered always choosing what was necessary, even when it cost him pieces of himself. He reached for the bowl. The liquid was warm, thicker than water. He drank. It tasted of ash and bitter spice and something that made his tongue go numb. Heat slid down his throat, then cold, like swallowing fire and snow in the same breath. His stomach tightened. The world tilted slightly. Maelor gestured toward the circle at the chamber's center. The priests spread, forming a ring. Their torches cast long shadows that bent toward Jon as if drawn. Jon stepped into the center. Melisandre moved with him. Her eyes were wide now, and fear lived in them, naked and unhidden. She whispered in Valyrian under her breath, not translating prayer or warning or both. Maelor raised his hand. The obsidian dagger in Jon's belt seemed to hum against his hip. Melisandre spoke quickly, voice tight. "He says you will open the mark," she whispered. "He says the stone will listen." Jon drew the obsidian dagger. Its edge looked unreal in the torchlight, too perfect. He held it above his palm. Davos took a half step forward, voice raw. "Jon, don't." Jon shook his head once, small, final. He pressed the dagger's edge into his palm and drew it across. Pain flashed sharp. Blood welled dark against pale skin. It should have looked black in the obsidian-lit chamber. Instead it looked too red, too bright, like fresh fire. The moment his blood touched the dagger's edge, the runes in the floor flared faintly, thin lines of dim red light tracing the rings. The chamber breathed. Jon's blood dripped onto the mosaic. It hit black glass and spread like ink. The obsidian walls shimmered, and suddenly Jon was not in the chamber. He was in darkness, a cold so deep it felt like a mind pressed against his skin. He smelled snow and old death. He heard the crackle of ice forming. He turned, and he saw a field of black glass stretching endless beneath a sky of ash. 12 figures stood in a ring, tall and still, crowns jagged as frozen flame. Their faces were pale, beautiful in a wrong way, human features sharpened into something ancient and hungry. One of them stepped forward, not the one Jon had faced. This one's crown was longer, its points curved like claws. Its eyes were not bright blue. They were a dull, deep frost gray, like ice that had watched centuries pass. It looked at Jon, and Jon felt his stomach drop, because it smiled. A sound like cracking ice filled the dark, and Jon realized it was laughter. He tried to move. His feet would not obey. He tried to breathe. The air burned cold in his lungs. The figure spoke. No words, only a pressure in Jon's skull. A whisper directly into bone. "You carry our brother's death like a stain." Jon's throat clenched. He forced his mouth open. "I killed him," he rasped, though no sound left his lips in that place. "I'll kill you too." The smile widened, and behind the figure, the other 11 crowns tilted slightly, as if listening. "Kill?" The presence murmured, amused. "You think you killed?" Jon felt his blood freeze. In the chamber, far away, he heard Davos shouting his name. He heard Tormund's voice like thunder. He heard ghosts snarling. In the dark, the crown-clawed king leaned closer. "We were made to outlast fire," the presence whispered. "And fire was made to fail." Jon's palm burned where the obsidian had cut. His blood, in the vision, turned to black frost on the glass beneath him. Then a second sensation, heat, sudden and fierce, slammed into the dark like a door kicked open. Melisandre's voice cut through. screaming in Valyrian, and fire flared in the Vis. Ion bright enough to hurt. The Frost King recoiled, the ring of crowns shuddering as if disturbed. Jon gasped, and the chamber snapped back into place around him. He was on his knees in the Obsidian circle. His palm bled onto black glass. His breath came in harsh bursts. The runes in the floor glowed faintly, then dimmed. Maelor Vesheris watched him with calm interest, as if Jon had merely recited a poem. Melisandre stood over Jon, shaking, her hands lifted as if she had tried to hold back a flood. Davos's face was twisted with fury and fear. "What did you do to him?" he snarled. Maelor spoke, and the chamber's torches leaned toward Jon, as if hungry to hear the answer. Melisandre's voice came hoarse. "He says," she whispered, "the mark is loud." Jon lifted his head slowly. His eyes met Maelor's. "What does loud mean?" Jon rasped. Maelor answered, and for the first time Jon heard something like satisfaction in his tone. Melisandre swallowed hard. "It means," she whispered, "they heard you back. They brought him back to the guest chambers, but the city did not feel the same." Jon's body moved as if it belonged to someone else. His palm was wrapped in clean cloth that smelled faintly of ash and herbs. The cut burned with a steady ache that did not fade. More than pain, there was a sensation in him like a bell struck once and still vibrating, subtle, persistent. Davos kept a hand on Jon's arm as they walked, as if afraid Jon might drift away if released. "Stay with me," Davos muttered, not unkindly, not as an order but as a plea. "Don't you bloody dare leave me with these silver-haired snakes." Tormund prowled at their side, eyes scanning every doorway, every bridge above. "If a dead man jumps out," he growled, "I'll split it in half." Melisandre walked with her hands clenched, lips moving in silent prayer. Sweat glistened at her temples despite the warmth. As they neared the guest chambers, Jon felt it again, a sudden thin taste of ice. He stopped. Ghosts stopped with him, ears pinned back, hackles rising. The guards glanced at one another, annoyance flickering. Jon's eyes turned to the nearest wall, a basalt surface near a vent that hissed steam into the air. Heat should have made the stone slick with moisture. Instead, a thin vein of frost traced across it. At first Jon thought it was ash clinging strangely. Then the line spread, pale and delicate as spiderweb. Ice bloomed across warm stone, crackling softly. Davos's face drained of color. "That's not possible," he whispered. A Valyrian soldier cursed in his own tongue, torch raised. Another shouted, and the street's calm hum shifted into alertness. Men and women turned their heads. A few stepped back quickly, eyes wide. Melisandre lifted her hand. A small flame sprang to life in her palm, then flickered, its red wavering, paling at the edges until it looked almost blue-white. Her eyes widened in terror. "It is early," she breathed. "It is too early." Tormund spat. "What is?" he demanded. Melisandre did not answer immediately. Her gaze was fixed on the frost creeping across basalt. "A seal," she whispered. "One of the bindings. They are thinning." Jon's chest tightened. He could feel it too. Something under the city, a slow shifting like a giant turning in sleep. The red pulse beneath the stone stuttered, hesitated, then continued. The frost stopped spreading as suddenly as it began. The ice held for a heartbeat, shining faintly in lantern light, then hissed and melted away, leaving only damp stone. The street exhaled. People murmured. Soldiers lowered torches, but their eyes did not soften. Valar Sithris appeared as if conjured from shadow. "Inside," he said sharply in the common tongue. His calm had cracked, just slightly. "Now." Davos glared at him. "That was your doing?" he snapped. Valar's gaze flicked to Jon's bandaged hand. "His," he corrected, and his voice was tight. "Or rather, there's the resonance pulls at the bindings. Archon Maelor warned you." Jon's throat felt dry. "I didn't do anything," he said. Valar's expression was almost pitying. "You exist," he replied. "Here." With that mark in you, that is enough." They hurried into the guest chambers. The door shut, the lock clicked. Inside, the brazier flame burned steady, but Jon noticed something he hadn't before. Its light did not reach the corners properly. The shadows there were too deep, as if something crouched just out of sight. Davos paced, fury tightening his movements. If they sent that monster to Westeros, if they let it loose. He broke off, breathing hard. "I should have known. I should have." "You could not have known," Melisandre said softly. Her voice carried a rawness Jon had never heard from her before. "I did not know. The fire showed me fragments, fed me certainty like a drug. And while I burned for it, they watched." Jon sat heavily on the stone bench by the table, map spread before him. His bandaged palm throbbed. He closed his eyes and saw the Frost King's smile. "They heard you back." "What did it say?" Davos asked, suddenly still, his eyes fixed on Jon's face. "In that vision." Jon hesitated. He could still feel the presence in his skull like a finger pressed against bruised skin. "It said, I think it said we didn't kill," Jon murmured. "Not truly," said. His voice roughened. "They were made to outlast fire." Tormund's jaw tightened. "Then we burn them hotter," he said simply. Melisandre's laugh came out as a sob. "That is what Valyria believed," she whispered. "Burn hotter, bind tighter, control, control, control." She lifted her flame again, and for an instant its edges turned pale. "But fire does not control winter. Fire only provokes it." Davos stared at the map again, and his face hardened into something Jon recognized. The look Davos wore when he decided he would do what was right even if it killed him. "So we go," Davos said. Valar's voice came from the door's other side, muffled but clear. "Archon Mailer will see you at sunset," he said. "The inner Caldera expedition will be decided." Jon opened his eyes. In the brazier's flame, just for a heartbeat, he saw 12 thin crowns reflected, then only ordinary fire. He flexed his bandaged hand and felt the ache answer. Somewhere beneath Valyria, something had stirred, and it had noticed him. Sunset in Valyria arrived like a verdict. The city's golden lantern light brightened as the sky darkened, and the red glow under the stone pulsed steady again, as if the brief frost had been a cough quickly smothered. People moved with practiced calm, but Jon felt the tension under it. An awareness, a readiness, like a soldier's hand hovering near a hilt. They were taken back to the Great Hall, though this time not through the main streets. A hidden passage led them along elevated bridges and narrow corridors carved into stone, away from crowds. Jon counted doors. He counted guards. Davos said nothing, but Jon saw him counting too. Archon Mailer Vesheris waited with fewer attendants this time. Captain Rhaeler Cytheris stood to one side, helm under arm, eyes hard. Valar Cytheris stood opposite, hands clasped, expression carefully neutral. Alyra Coheres lingered near a pillar, scroll case at her hip, eyes sharp. Mailer spoke without preamble. Melisandre translated, her voice steadier now but still haunted. "He says the mark is confirmed," she murmured. "He says you may go to the outer Caldera under escort. You will not enter the inner Caldera until the first flame decides you may." Tormund snorted. "A dragon decides," he muttered. "Better than a king, I suppose." Mailer's gaze flicked to him, and for a moment Jon thought the Archon understood the insult even without translation. Then Mailer spoke again, and Captain Rhaeler stepped forward. Melisandre's mouth tightened. "Captain Rhaeler will command your escort," she said. "He will kill you if you deviate." Captain Rhaeler said something in Valyrian that sounded like a promise carved in stone. He did not look at Jon as he spoke. He looked through him. Davos's voice came sharp. "And why allow this at all?" he demanded. "If he's such a danger to your seals." Mailer's eyes settled on Davos with faint irritation, like a man asked to justify breathing. He spoke slowly. Melisandre swallowed. "He says the Black Dragon's presence draws attention," she murmured. He says Drogon is not merely wandering. He is being called. And if Drogon answers, the first flame stirs, and the bindings strain. He says if you are here, your mark may amplify it, her voice caught, or it may be used to redirect it. Jon's stomach tightened. Used, he repeated coldly. Maelor's lips curved faintly. He spoke. Melisandre's voice went flat. He says everything is used, she translated, or it breaks. Jon stared at the Archon. And Elira? He asked, nodding toward the scholar. Maelor spoke again, short. Elira's eyes narrowed, but she stepped forward. I am assigned, she said in the common tongue, voice crisp, to record, to observe, to ensure your inevitable foolishness does not become an expensive tragedy. Tormund grinned. I knew you wanted to steal my boots. Elira's gaze flicked to him. Only if your corpse is wearing them, she replied sweetly. Davos exhaled hard. We leave when? Captain Reeler answered in the common tongue, his accent sharper than Valar's. Now, he said, before the city sleeps. The Caldera does not care for daylight. They were outfitted quickly. At a Valyrian armory, Jon was given a mask of dark metal with slits for eyes and vents at the mouth, lined with cloth that smelled of herbs and ash. For the fumes, Captain Reeler said curtly, do not remove it when ordered. The air will melt your lungs. Davos was given rope, hooks, and compact metal canisters that Valar called sealed water. Tormund received axes whose blades were dark and strangely light, their edges so sharp they seemed to hum. He swung one experimentally and grinned like a boy given a toy. Melisandre fastened a red cloak over her charred robes. Jon noticed she chose a cloak with no sigil, no claim, just red cloth and the weight of it. Elira offered Jon a scroll case. Maps, she said, more accurate than the one your onion knight keeps stroking. Davos bristled. I don't. Jon took the case. Thank you, he said. Elira's eyes flicked to his bandaged hand. Do not thank me, she murmured. Thank me if we return. Ghost was given nothing, of course, and yet the Valyrian guards eyed him with a wary respect that told Jon they understood predators when they saw them. When they stepped out of the armory into the street, the city's lantern light seemed dimmer, as if the torches were tired. The air held a faint bitter tang. The red pulse beneath the stone beat steady, but Jon felt a subtle stutter beneath it, like a second heartbeat hidden under the first. Captain Reeler led them through a gate in the city wall and out onto a causeway that descended into mist. Torches lined it, their flames a deeper gold than any Jon had seen. Beyond the gate, Valyria's wilderness waited, black stone, steaming fissures, ash drifting like snow. Jon looked back once, brief. The city behind them glowed like a jewel set in smoke. He wondered how many lies it had taken to keep that jewel hidden. Then he faced forward. The causeway fell away into the fog. And somewhere out there, beyond ash and heat, a dragon waited black-winged, grieving, and called by something older than any throne. Outside the city, the land changed its voice. The hammering of forges faded, replaced by the hiss of steam and the low crackle of distant vents. The causeway carried them over stretches of black sand and hardened lava, then onto a plain of glass so smooth it reflected torchlight in warped streaks. Ash drifted constantly, soft and relentless, gathering in folds of cloth and clinging to breath. Captain Reeler moved with certainty, as if he had walked this route 100 times. His soldiers held torches and wore masks. Their armor glinted dully beneath ash, pale scales dulled by soot. Elira Coheres stayed near Jon, eyes scanning the ground and the mist beyond. Davos trudged with a stubborn set to his shoulders, rope and hook strapped tight. Tormund muttered curses at the heat, at the smell, at the way the land refused to be solid. Ghost prowled ahead, silent, a pale streak against the dark. They reached a stretch where the glass plane cracked into jagged plates, like broken ice. Steam rose from fissures between them, warm and damp. The ground here was unstable. It shifted underfoot with faint creaks, as if the glass were thin over something hungry. Jon felt it first, a wrongness in the air, a sudden thinning of heat. Ghost froze, ears pinned back, then growled low. Captain Reeler lifted a hand, soldiers halting. He spoke a sharp command in Valyrian, and torches angled outward, searching the mist. Alyra's voice came tight. "Do not breathe deeply," she whispered. Davos's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" he murmured. Melisandre's flame flickered in her palm without her calling it. "The land is listening," she whispered back, "and sometimes it answers." The mist thickened ahead, then seemed to part as something moved within it. A shape emerged, low and crawling, its skin the color of ash, its limbs too long, joints bent wrong. It moved with the frantic hunger of a starving animal. Then another, then three more, slithering over glass, claws scraping. Tormund's grin flashed sharp. "Finally," he growled and swung his axe. The first creature lunged at him with a wet hiss, mouth opening too wide, teeth blackened as if burned. Tormund met it with steel. The axe bit deep into its shoulder, and ash puffed out as if its flesh were powder. The creature shrieked, not in pain, but in rage, and kept coming, clawing at Tormund's arm. Jon stepped in, long claw flashing. Valyrian steel cut through ash flesh cleanly. The creature's head rolled, spilling black grit instead of blood. It did not fall dead immediately. Twitched, its fingers clawed at glass. Its jaw opened and closed as if trying to speak. Jon's stomach tightened. "What are they?" he snapped. Alyra stumbled back as another creature lunged toward her. Ghost launched, teeth sinking into its throat. The direwolf shook once, violent and efficient, and the creature's neck snapped with a dry crack. Captain Reeler's soldiers moved as one, spears thrusting, torches swung like clubs. Flame caught on ash flesh, and the creatures shrieked, writhing as fire ate them. The smell was awful, burned hair, burned bone, burned something that should not have been alive. Melisandre lifted her hands, and fire blossomed from her palms into a ring that pushed outward. The creatures recoiled, hissing. Her flame flared bright, then, for a heartbeat, paled at the edges, as if frost tried to kiss it. Melisandre gasped, eyes wide. "No!" she whispered, voice breaking. "Not here." Jon felt it too, a faint cold pressure like a fingertip brushing his spine. The last creature lunged at Jon, faster than the rest. Its eyes were dull and dead, but its movement was desperate. Jon drove Longclaw through its chest. The blade sank into ash flesh, and for an instant Jon felt resistance, something like ice. The creature convulsed. Its mouth opened, and a thin whisper poured out. Not words, but a sound that made Jon's teeth ache. Then it crumbled, collapsing into a heap of black grit that the wind immediately began to carry away. Silence fell heavy. Davos's breath came hard behind his mask. "Those weren't men," he rasped. Alyra's eyes stared at the ash heaps, her face pale beneath soot. "They were once," she said softly. "In the early years after the doom, many died in the fumes. Some did not die properly. They became echoes, hungry for heat, hungry for breath." Tormund wiped ash from his axe blade and snorted. "Echoes can still be killed," he declared. Captain Reeler's gaze snapped toward a fissure where steam rose thicker now. He barked a command. His soldiers tightened formation, torches raised. Alyra leaned close to Jon, voice low enough only he could hear. "They came because you are here," she whispered. "The land senses the mark. Things that cling to boundaries wake when boundaries thin." Jon's bandaged palm throbbed under his glove. He remembered the Frost King's smile. He looked into the mist ahead. Far away, deeper into Valyria, a low sound rolled, too deep to be thunder. A roar, answered by another, fainter, like a second voice under the first. Captain Reeler spoke curtly. "Move," he ordered. "We do not linger where the dead remember how to walk." They moved on, stepping over cracked glass and steaming fissures, ash falling around them like cursed snow. Behind them, the wind lifted the creature's remains and carried them away. as if Valyria did not like evidence left lying around. The outer caldera revealed itself slowly, as if it did not enjoy being seen. The land rose and fell in jagged ridges. Steam thickened, heat pressed harder. Ash became heavier, clumping, sticking to skin. The smell of sulfur sharpened until it felt like it might carve the inside of Jon's nose. Then they crested a basalt ridge, and the world opened into a wound so vast Jon's mind struggled to hold it. Below them spread the caldera, a bowl of black rock and molten rivers, glowing red-orange in twisting lines. Vents belched steam in steady columns. The air shimmered. The ground far below looked alive, shifting with slow, terrible power. And above it, dragons moved. Not one, not three, many. Some were small compared to Visophian, sleek shapes darting between steam columns. Others were enormous, great scaled bodies gliding through smoke, wings spreading wide enough to blot out lantern light when they passed. Jon stood still, breath caught in his throat. He had seen dragons in Westeros, Drogon, Regal, Viserion. He had watched them grow from hatchlings to living storms. He had thought that was the pinnacle of legend. Here, they were only the beginning. Tormund's voice came out as a whisper, reverent for once. "They're all real," he breathed. Davos's eyes were wide, face shiny with sweat. "7 save us," he murmured again. But this time it was not prayer. It was surrender to awe. Melisandre stared downward, and Jon saw something like dread twist her mouth. "This is the Forge of Crowns," she whispered. "Fire that births kings, and kings that demand fire." Alyra stepped to the ledge's edge, careful-footed despite the uneven stone. She pointed across the caldera, toward a distant spire of basalt that rose from the bowl like a black finger. "There," she said, voice tight. "Look." Jon followed her finger. At first he saw only steam, shifting and thick. Then a shape moved within it, black against red glow. A dragon perched on the basalt spire, wings folded tight, body hunched as if guarding something beneath it. Its scales were not bronze or green. They were black as midnight, swallowing light. Even at this distance, Jon recognized the curve of its neck, the jagged line of its spines. Drogon. Jon's chest clenched so hard it hurt. Grief surged, sharp, sudden, unwanted. He saw Daenerys' face, saw her eyes close, felt again the warmth leaving her body as Drogon's scream tore the sky. Davos noticed Jon's stillness. His voice came quiet. "That's him," he murmured. Jon nodded once, unable to speak. Tormund's grin spread, fierce and delighted. "Black bastard," he whispered, admiration thick. "He looks like he could bite the sun." Ghost padded forward, ears forward now, nose lifted. The direwolf's body was taut, not with fear but with recognition. Predator seeing predator. Captain Reeler's voice cut through, sharp. "No further," he ordered. "Not yet." Jon tore his eyes away from Drogon long enough to look at the captain. "We came for him," Jon said, voice rough. "And you will not approach him like a starving man approaches meat," Captain Reeler snapped. "The black dragon is not tame. He is not bound. He answers only the call of the first flame." Davos's voice came strained. "Call," he echoed. "What call?" Alyra's eyes stayed fixed on Drogon. "The caldera sings," she said softly. "Dragons hear it. Some resist, some obey." Her gaze flicked to Jon, and there was something like pity in it. "He is grieving. Grief makes dragons dangerous." Jon stared at Drogon on the spire. Even from here, he could see the dragon's head lift slightly, nostrils flaring. Smoke curled from its mouth. The dragon's gaze turned, slow and heavy, and Jon felt, absurdly, as if those eyes found him across the distance. A low rumble rolled over the caldera, vibrating through basalt under Jon's boots. Drogon's chest moved, expanding. The rumble deepened into a roar, massive, mournful, furious. Other dragons answered, calls rising and falling through steam like voices in an ancient choir. Heat slammed into Jon's face as a gust of hot wind swept up from the caldera, carrying ash and sparks. His hair whipped. Melisandre's cloak snapped. For a heartbeat, within the roar, Jon heard something else. A thin crackle like ice forming. He blinked, and the sound was gone under dragon thunder. Captain Reeler turned his torch toward a narrow path descending the ridge. "We go down," he said. "We approach the spire by the serpent path. If the black dragon chooses to kill you, he will. If the caldera chooses to kill you, it will. Our spears will not stop either." Tormund grinned. "Good," he said. "I hate easy walks." Davos muttered, "I hate you." Jon's eyes remained on Drogon as they began to descend. The dragon did not move from its spire. It watched, not like a beast waiting to strike, like a judge waiting to hear a plea. The serpent path wound down the caldera's inner slope like a scar. It was carved into basalt, narrow enough that one misstep meant a fall into red glow and screaming heat. Chains were set into the rock at intervals, and Captain Reeler ordered them to clip rope to them. Valyrian metal that did not soften in heat, links cool beneath gloves. Steam rose in thick breaths, sometimes hiding the path entirely. The air was so hot it made Jon's eyes water. His lungs burned with every inhale through the mask. Sweat soaked his furs. His bandaged palm throbbed steadily, as if keeping time with the caldera's pulse. Drogon's spire loomed closer now, rising above them like a black tooth. The dragon still perched there, wings tight, head turning slowly as they approached. Jon felt the weight of that gaze, heavy as a hand on his skull. He wanted to call out. He wanted to say the dragon's name, as if a name could bridge the gulf between grief and fire. He did not know if Drogon had ever understood names. He only knew dragons remembered. They rounded a bend where the path narrowed further, hugging a wall slick with moisture. Below, molten rivers flowed in slow, twisting lines, their surface crusting, then breaking like skin. Alyra's voice came tight. "Do not touch the wall," she warned. "The stone sweats poison here." Tormund grunted. "Stone that sweats is disgusting," he muttered. Davos's hand stayed on the rope, knuckles white. Jon could hear the older man's breath rasping behind the mask. Courage did not make lungs stronger. They moved on. Then Jon felt it, sudden and unmistakable. Cold. Not the relief of shade. Not the cool of damp stone. True cold, sharp as a blade. He stopped so abruptly Captain Reeler's soldiers nearly collided with him. "What?" Davos began, then cut off as he felt it too. Ahead, the basalt path shimmered. A thin sheet of ice crept across it, spreading in delicate veins, crackling softly. It was impossible. Ice blooming on stone hot enough to sweat steam. Melisandre gasped. Her flame flared in her palms without her willing it, flickering red to pale at the edges. Alyra's face went white. "No," she whispered. "Not here. Not this deep." Captain Reeler barked in Valyrian, soldiers snapping torches outward, forming a line. Their discipline tightened like a fist. He drew his blade, a dark metal sword that caught torchlight with a dull sheen. Tormund's axes came up, one in each hand, grin gone. "Something's coming," he growled, delighted and furious at once. Ghost snarl rose, low and vibrating, fur bristling. The dire wolf stared down into the steam below the path, where shadows moved like slow water. Jon's bandaged palm burned. The ache sharpened into something like pressure, as if an unseen hand pressed the wound from within. The ice reached Jon's boots and stopped, trembling. From below, through the steam, a sound rose. Soft at first like wind through cracks, then clearer. A crackle, a slow grinding, as if something walked on frozen glass. Jon's breath fogged inside his mask. Melisandre thrust her hands forward, fire surging brighter. "Back!" she hissed. "Back now!" Davos grabbed Jon's cloak and yanked hard, dragging him a step away from the ice. "Move!" Davos rasped, voice tight with fear. "Move!" Jon's eyes stayed on the steam below. A shape emerged, Not fully, only a suggestion at first. A tall silhouette, too straight to be human, moving with slow certainty. The steam curled around it as if afraid. A faint pale gleam appeared where eyes should be, dull and deep like old frost. Above its head, something jagged caught torchlight, points like broken ice. A crown. Jon's blood went cold. The silhouette stopped beneath the path, head tilting slightly, as if listening to the sound of Jon's heartbeat. Then, inside Jon's skull, that familiar pressure returned. No words, only a sensation like a smile. Brother's stain. Jon's knees threatened to buckle. He forced them to hold. He drew Longclaw, the blade flashing dark in torchlight. Captain Reeler's voice cracked, the first break in his discipline. "Hold the line," he snarled, but his eyes were wide. Alira's voice came as a whisper of horror. "One of them," she breathed. "Truly, one of them." Melisandre's flame surged, and for a heartbeat it burned pale, almost blue, before snapping back to red. She looked terrified. Tormund roared, a raw, wild sound. "Come up," he bellowed into the steam. "Come up and I'll show you what warm blood feels like." The crowned silhouette below paused, head tilting, as if amused. Jon tasted ash and ice in the same breath. The caldera held its heat, the ice held its spread, and between them, on a narrow strip of stone above molten rivers, Jon Snow faced the first true proof that Westeros had been only the beginning.